Hey everyone, it's Ariana from And Here We Are, and it is Q&A Wednesday again. This is the 7th episode, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about natural health and kind of how I got started, and hopefully be able to point you to some resources too. So the question I got was from Amanda, and she wrote, how did you become interested in health and natural remedies? Could you talk a little about your beliefs and practices when it comes to that? I'm starting to become really interested in creating a healthier lifestyle for our family, but I'm not really sure how I'll pull it off here in Brooklyn, New York. So, thank you for your question, Amanda. And I have an interesting sort of evolutionary story, I guess, about natural health. It started when I was younger because my mom was really kind of crunchy. She worked as a midwife and taught childbirth classes, and then she was really interested in herbalism. So she grew some herbs in the backyard. I don't think very successfully, but we were in Southern California, in LA actually, and there was so much access to different markets that were basically like ethnic markets where traditional herbs were sold. So I was homeschooled, and sometimes we would have a rolling schoolhouse where she would just pack us into the van and we would go to Chinatown, or we would go to a Hispanic area in East LA, and she could pick up herbs there. So she was definitely one of those people who just pursued an interest and kind of geeked out on it and did her thing. And she made herbal tinctures and she made cough syrup and stuff like that for our family. And, you know, she took us to regular doctors and things like that when she needed to. But she also did as much as possible herself. And so that's kind of the environment that we grew up in. And then we moved to the Philippines, and there were so many folk remedies, you know, which, you know, our helpers knew and anybody we talked to knew, because it's just really rural where we were. And so unless we really needed a drug, she'd try not to give it to us, but really tried to use a natural cure instead. And so there were kind of influences from everywhere, because when we were in LA, you know, we also had a woman from Mexico living with us who kind of shared some of their folk traditions. And then in the Philippines, we had our helpers and everyone we knew that shared their folk traditions. We even had a midwife living with us who also used folk remedies and things like that in her work. So there was already a lot of that influence going on. And so in some ways, it was really easy to get into because that was sort of already around us. We knew that herbs are there to help heal us. We can use them if we know how. So I would definitely credit my mom for being an influence there and kind of opening up that world to all of us. And as far as I know, all my siblings, which is 6 of us, were all into really natural stuff. And home brewing and, you know, all kinds of sort of crunchy stuff is just sort of a little bit of our heritage in our family. So as far as kind of my journey beyond that goes, when my dad is type 1 diabetic, and so is my brother. He was diagnosed when he was 12, I think. And so when I was 12, I was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And it was a really interesting story because we were in the Philippines, really rural. And it's not like I was getting regular checkups at a pediatrician or anything. I mean, we just kind of handled our own health care for the most part. And my dad and my brother handled their own diabetes, and it's just sort of what they did. So it was my dad who diagnosed me after I got really, really sick and lost a whole bunch of weight as a 12-year-old. And it was my dad who helped me figure out what my insulin doses should be, taught me how to manage my diabetes. And really, that was kind of an important point in my life for me because, you know, I saw like, okay, my dad and my brother have been living with this disease for a long time, and they're healthy people and doesn't really hold them back. And for me, that was kind of the message that I got as well. Like, it's a huge bummer to be type 1 diabetic. and it's a big hassle, but it doesn't need to be a part of your identity so much. It doesn't need to define what happens for you in life. And for me, I remember making a really conscious choice that I want to be healthier than the regular non-diabetic person out there. You know, I don't want this diagnosis to kind of define like what happens to me in my body in my course of life. So it became a really big focus for me at that point to do whatever I could to be healthy. So interestingly, after I was diagnosed, it was less than a year after that I started going to boarding school. And I went to boarding school, you know, as a 13-year-old, and I was on my own to manage my diabetes completely. And so that was a big thing that I just took really seriously. And as it should be with anyone with a disease, it should be more important to you than it is to anyone else, how your body's doing and how well you can manage. So for me, that meant really taking full responsibility for managing my illness and just doing whatever I could. So I pretty much just looked for all of the best possible things I could do. I exercised like crazy. You know, I would get up at 5 in the morning and go for a run. I can only envy the amount of discipline I had at that point in my life. But I mean, long story short, you know, when I finally did see an endocrinologist, my numbers were fantastic. They were really amazed. And that was a really empowering experience for me to feel like I was really in control of my own health. And so I have to say that like eating and natural health and stuff has been on my mind pretty much nonstop since that age. And it still is. And I, you know, have continued to learn more and more. And in college, I thought I was going to become a nutritionist. And as you may have heard previous posts or Q&As, I thought that being vegan was going to be the best route for me and was the best thing for a diabetic. And I, you know, did that wholeheartedly and sort of crashed and burned a little and figured out that maybe that's not the best for me. And now we do more of the paleo sort of grain-free diet, which works for all of our family, except we're not really militant about it. We try to just make sure there's always joy and always grace and always gratitude at the table, and we don't get hung up on rules at all. But overall, that is what works best for me and what works best for Jeff and Amelia. So I'm trying to think how to point you in the right direction, Amanda. I mean, I remember one thing that I had was that, probably a lot of you have seen it, it's the Encyclopedia of Natural Cures. I got my first copy of that when I was a freshman in college and just kind of pored over it and looked at different ailments and looked at the eating habits and the herbs that kind of corresponded with it, how to cure a sore throat, how to, you know, fix any problem, basically. So I think some basic resource books are a great idea. Another great idea is to check out Nourishing Traditions, which is a great book. It's kind of a cookbook and kind of a textbook too, really. It's really interesting. And then maybe you can find your Weston A. Price Foundation chapter that's in your area. I would definitely look at local food co-ops and see what kind of groups there are there meeting and see if you can join any of them. There are so many interesting ways to get involved with herbalism and nutrition and things like that. And I think there are so many groups out there. Like, I don't know if you use meetup.com to try to find things happening. And I think actually I haven't been to Brooklyn, but my impression is that Brooklyn's pretty crunchy. Like there's a lot of really interesting things going on, a lot of alternative culture. So I will kind of look for some extra resources to put beneath this, and you readers and watchers, I hope that you might have some extra resources for Amanda, and maybe you guys could share a little bit too about how you got into natural health and what your favorite resources are. I've really valued all of the blogs that are out there. I've been a part of some great networks that have just so much information to share about nutrition, about herbalism, about natural cures. Of course, there's tons of people talking about essential oils right now, and those can be really powerful. So I would just kind of, assemble sort of a group of online mentors, kind of. You can just kind of follow certain blogs and just keep reading, and you'll learn and you'll learn. And if you ask questions on a lot of those blogs, people will really help you out. And there's a lot of Facebook groups you can join that are kind of holistically minded. So, Amanda, I hope I've answered your question. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, or if any of you do, please ask in the comments. I'd love to chat about it a bit. So that is my story on how I got into natural health. And I will talk to you again next time. Thank you for watching, and please leave a question below so I know what to talk about next time. Okay? Bye.